Thank you so much, Karl, for your time. It's really a pleasure to see you again in Washington, D.C. I would like to start our conversation with question. We are here a couple of days after the elections. How do you feel personally about the results? And what are your feelings about it?
I feel very tired. We've all survived, and we haven't quite seen the end of the process yet. There's this transition now of 2 months, but elections, I think, were, at least in my lifetime, probably the most exciting, and probably for very many people, because it was close and because there were so many unresolved states or unresolved votes in states that took some time and are still taking time to get final counts. So that made it all very exciting. And I think also, of course, what was at stake, because we have seen differences in campaigns and in candidates over the years. The differences were so stark this time between the campaigns. So that added, I think, to the whole big picture of this year's election.
Yeah, it's still going on in a way, but we are quite close also to the day when president will be nominated. And immediately after, when results came out that Joe Biden has won the maximum, also foreign leaders didn't hesitate, they didn't wait, they were sending their congratulations. So there is a huge expectation from international world to be in friendly relationship with USA again. How do you see from this point, if Joe Biden become president of the United States, will his foreign politics be different from current one?
Oh yes, we could spend an hour or two talking about that. We've been noticing the congratulations that have come in from foreign leaders, and of course that's a tradition. It's a formality. It's a nice thing to do. It's what people do. Today we noticed that President Erdogan from Turkey sent his congratulations, and that's maybe a little different because there was a little hesitation by let's say, more despotic leaders around the world, Putin in Russia, Erdogan, Bolsonaro in Brazil, I believe, also are waiting or have waited for a few days. So I think that there's a tide that is turning, and people see that Biden, from the election, that he was legitimately elected, and that the process will continue. I think that on the question of foreign policy, or a Biden administration foreign policy, where do you begin? There's I think a lot that has to be, at least from our perspective, because we represent the Baltic American communities and the national organizations here of Estonians, Latvians, and Lithuanians. We look at it maybe from a very narrow perspective, but also from the perspective of U.S. relations with the Baltics and transatlantic relations. So some things, I think, from the prior administration, or from the current Trump administration, that have been pretty solid policies that have been implemented by the administration, I think, will continue. But there are some other issues that cause great concern. Some of the rhetoric, and I'm thinking about also the threats, the perceived threats to NATO's existence, because of maybe tearing down of some of the otherwise normal, friendly, allied relations that the U.S. has with its partners and allies. Those have been put into question at times over the last 4 years. And I think that the Biden administration, of course, sees that and sees that is something that cannot go on. That we have to reestablish good ties, working relationships with our allies, NATO allies, especially in Europe, and including the Baltic countries. I think the U.S.-Baltic relationship hasn't really suffered. It's been good over the last 30 years. It's been very solid. But if you're looking at the bigger picture and U.S. transatlantic relations, there have been some things that have been very problematic. And I think that again, the Biden administration would be looking at those and either setting a more positive policies in dealing with our partners. So maybe that's the first place. You also have to think about U.S.-Russia relationship, because I mean, one point which was very hard for us to accept was that at least as far as the rhetoric coming from the White House, that there was no condemnation ever of Russia from the president, even though U.S. policies, again, I think have been pretty solid over the last 4 years. The actions and some of the sanctions. Of course, a president has to lead, and a president has to set the tone for those relations as well. So there was sort of an imbalance that has been very frustrating and has been very at times difficult to work with, and even as recently as the announcement that the U.S. would be withdrawing troops from Germany. That was sort of a shock to the system. I think it was a shock for the Germans because they had not been consulted about that, and it again has the potential for upsetting the balance of creating, even despite whatever good plans are being made and implemented. I think the balance would be upset if and talking with experts in Washington too, and listening to what people who know about the ties that we have in NATO, and especially with basing in Germany over the years, what a diminishing of that would mean to the alliance, and all of this could be seen and probably is taken as an opportunity by the Putin regime, and we just can't really stand for that. So if you start with transatlantic relations, making sure that the NATO relationship is very strong, I think the incoming Biden administration, they get that. They even when asking people who were associated with the Biden campaign about the reset policies of the Obama administration, I think that they are very aware and sensitive about that, and that I think we would not see, at least at this stage, that there would be a reset of any kind of relations anytime soon with the Putin regime if they continue to act as they have, at least, well, it goes back forever, but 2008, the war in Georgia, but especially after Ukraine, because the reset policy was established a little bit before that. I think Vice President Biden actually publicly announced that for the first time at the Munich Security Conference at the very beginning of the Obama administration. But what happened then Ukraine happened after that, and it's been a tragedy. So I think that a Biden administration would not go back to anything resembling that at this early stage.
Do you think that Biden would be also active meeting foreign leaders? With COVID, it's quite difficult practically, but do you think that he would prefer talk to people, go to see countries, be active in this sense?
Well, he has been very active, or he was very active as a senator, as a vice president. He traveled to the region quite a bit. He was in the Baltics. He went to Riga, I believe, in 2000 and what was it, 16 perhaps, or maybe around that time. And then it must be remembered, although I don't think he traveled to the Baltics when he was a senator and on the Foreign Relations Committee when the NATO enlargement debate was taking place about 20 years ago. But he was very, very interested in that. He was a supporter of the Baltics getting into NATO. So I think that that his interest and his knowledge about the area will continue, obviously. Of course, would always like to see a U.S. president visiting the Baltic countries. Most of the U.S. presidents from, well, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, they visited the Baltics. The Baltic presidents were in Washington, D.C. to meet with President Trump, but I'm sure that Biden will be invited to come and visit many countries. I think eventually he will get to the Baltic countries as well. And I'm sure the Baltic leaders will be waiting to come to Washington to meet with him and his administration.
Yeah, you're right that the Baltic area is not strange for him at all. He has met leaders and been here. You already mentioned Russia. Putin so far hasn't said anything about the results, but do you think that Biden would try to talk to Putin still, to be like, to try to build some dialogue with Russia?
Well, I think his people will be speaking with their people. Obviously, I mean those contacts and communications will go on. Obviously, whether they're direct communications, as we saw with the current Trump administration, occasional phone calls. That we don't know. I think when Putin picks up the phone to call Biden and congratulate him, then we'll see maybe a new door opening. But I don't have high expectations, at least initially at first. Yeah, the communications are going to continue, and they'll keep the avenues of the doors open.
How about Belarus, Ukraine, that area? Is it familiar to Biden as well? Do you think he might involve also in these stories, try to finish these conflicts?
Oh yeah, well, obviously Biden was really one of the point people in the Obama administration on Ukraine, and went there a number of times. I remember that even there was some outreach to some of the ethnic communities, a telephone call that I remember taking part of, that Vice President Biden had to explain U.S. policies and what they were doing. But I think he probably thought about Ukraine every day that he was vice president after the war began. So I see that. I think he's going to continue taking a great interest in developments over there. Well, Belarus is something new, even though that Lukashenko has been in power for over 26 years. I think the last couple of years we saw a U.S. policy that shifted a bit, that there was more engagement with the official Belarusian government, which we hadn't seen in a long time. I think in almost 15 years, 10 or 15 years. Secretary of State Pompeo, I believe, went to Belarus, and John Bolton when he was National Security Advisor. So there were some very high-level visits there. I think that whole offer or opportunity for Lukashenko to sort of think things over and step back a little bit on his policies, and a lot. I mean, not just human rights, but in being a country that was has been in a way, problematic and echoing some of the worst intentions of a country. I mean, he's not the last dictator of Europe. I mean, Putin is a challenger. I think there will be some kind of engagement. We're not really sure. There was this case of U.S. ambassador Julie Fisher, who was nominated and appointed to be ambassador to Belarus. She's not gone to Minsk yet. I know that in talking with the Belarusians and Belarusian American community here, that they don't necessarily want to see her go there. They're afraid that it would legitimize U.S. Sort of U.S. recognition of Lukashenko, or continued recognition of Lukashenko after the fraudulent election. I mean, the U.S. has come out and said that they oppose that. They think it was fraudulent, and in step with European partners that they are they have condemned that and increased sanctions on Lukashenko and his circle and other security officials who have been responsible for not just for bad behavior, but for really human rights violations. So the U.S., I think, is sort of in a difficult spot right now. I mean, we hope that the people will prevail in Belarus. We have supported that here in the work that we do, and would like to see Lukashenko leave. The time to do that was a long time ago, but it's always a challenge when you're dealing in a world where governments or leaders or countries start dealing in a real politic way, and what the realpolitik will be for the Biden administration. Well, we really don't know yet. Things may not change on their own. If there's pressure from the outside, who knows? But there's always Russia and Belarus, the Belarusian people. I think the Coordination Council, they've also stated that they're not interested in NATO. They're not interested in the EU, at least maybe not at this time. And we have to respect that too. It's a different country. They have a different outlook. I think the people maybe feel very close to the West, and I think we have to really thank countries like Lithuania and Latvia and the Baltic countries that have stepped up, along with Poland and other neighbors in Europe who have really taken the right side in this.
And finally, Karl, you are here to defend interests of the Baltic states.
Baltic communities.
Baltic communities.
Yes.
You have done it for many, many years. With this president, with Biden, how do you see how easy or difficult that might be for you to find these contacts again in the new administration and work again with his people?
We, some of our, along with some of our colleagues, we had an opportunity to talk with somebody who was with the Biden campaign, and they said that, well, they would like to have more contacts with us if Biden becomes president. We certainly hope that would be the case. I think we see with Biden that he was a real, and has been a real transatlanticist, and that's a good thing for all of us. And I think because of his background, his interest, his work on building transatlantic relations, I think it's only inevitable that he would want to reach out to communities like ours who also are great believers in this. So we hope that that's the case, that we can engage with them. I mean, I can tell you, engagement with administrations is always a little different. Some do more. Some see only votes. Some see maybe only resources and money during campaigns. but we think that it's a little higher thing than that. It's I think our will and our ideals are very important, and I think that we would share that with with people working for a Biden administration.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Karl. All right, perfect.